The views expressed on this program are not necessarily those of WTJX, its board, staff, or underwriters.
On this episode of Comes with the Territory,
so we had to go outside and play.
Anticipation is growing for the upcoming Crucian Christmas Festival, yet concerns linger among some stakeholders who believe that changes by the Division of Festival have had a negative impact. Stay tuned for more on these concerns. Judge Renee Carty-Gumbs rejected the defense's motion questioning her authority and threatened sanctions in former Senator Stephen Payne's lawsuit against the 34th Legislature and its president, Donna Fred Gregory. We'll have more details. Plus, water haulers on St. Thomas bravely responded to the call for assistance during the Bavoni landfill fires this past summer, but they have yet to be paid for their efforts. We'll have more.
What do we want? When do we want it? Now!
Following protests in September over government contract negotiations, the United Steelworkers Union has turned its attention to the private sector. The union is actively opposing VIA's plan to relocate its local customer service jobs to Guyana. We'll have more on this developing story. Joining this week's panel discussion to analyze these issues and more are local radio talk show host Neville James, founding Carnival Committee member Alphonse Dalliard, and prominent local attorney Key Walker. Comes with the Territory starts now. Welcome to Comes with the Territory. I'm Lesley Comissiong. Excitement and anticipation are brewing in the air for the Crucian Christmas Festival, with official activities just around the corner. The 12-day celebration begins with the opening of the Festival Village on December 26th and culminates with the Adults Parade on January 6th. The Crucian Christmas Festival was placed under the Department of Tourism's newly established Division of Festivals in 2019, a move that has strengthened the festival by securing top-tier performers, intensifying promotional efforts, and streamlining the organization for a smoother celebration.
Established to create a sense of community and camaraderie while honoring our rich and vibrant culture, Crucian Christmas Festival has grown into an annual celebration which allows locals and visitors alike to peacefully revel in commemoration of our Caribbean roots. The festival's significance has grown beyond simply a local gathering, and as we continue to elevate the supplementary events surrounding the Crucian Christmas Festival, it has also become an opportunity to showcase local artists and provide them with a platform to highlight their talent to the world. This year's free Festival Village concerts provide an anchor for the festival season, where we welcome in international stars like Davido, Caribbean stars like Desha and Patrice Roberts, and homegrown stars who have taken the world by storm like Adamo for 7 nights of dancing and excitement.
Yes, we could bring in the off-island individuals as well, but we want to make sure that we're taking care of our locals, entertainers and festival goers, to make sure that, again, that they're equally compensated. At some point, they're paid timely, and they're part of this whole plan. We utilize them all year long, and we can't leave them out of the discussion now that it's festival. So I have a commitment from you on that. Do I have a commitment from you on that?
Yes, you do, Senator.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
All them senators are puppy show.
But not everyone is on board. Renowned calypsonian, the Mighty Pat, expressed dissatisfaction with the prize money for artists in the Monarch competition, making participation financially challenging for many.
Remember, just to record 2 songs is $1,000. To get the music written is $100 or sometimes $150 to get the music written out. Your clothes that you got to put on to come on stage. If you go to sing and you didn't come in the first 3, you're actually singing for free. And then you got some guys coming here to sing Koi Carnival, and those guys are not cheap, especially the one from Africa. You understand? And I guarantee you, they're paying here over $200,000-$300,000 to come here. And by the time they don't buy all of them tickets and put them up in hotels and all that stuff and so on, they're going to spend nearly $1 million on that guy. How could you justify that? You can't have these people in front talking about running carnival. These guys from tourism, they don't know nothing about carnival. I think they are the worst thing that ever happened to the Virgin Islands.
Other critics highlight the growing shift in cultural representation during parades, emphasizing scantily clad participants without meaningful representation.
This verbal arrow is pointed at the Division of Festivals today from me. A month ago, I tried to have a hearing to include the Department of Tourism concerning a comprehensive discussion around our culture and the cultural events that take place during our festivities, and have a discussion surrounding the cultural heritage component that a lot of stakeholders in that area believe is missing from the Division of Festivals. We had a very lengthy amount of testifiers, but unfortunately the department did not show up, and I'm hoping that in the future you will show up for that discussion, as I believe it's a very important one.
There are also concerns about heavy reliance on police officers for crowd control.
All officers are on deck for all of our events and in the respective districts. And then we usually, to assist us with handling the Juve, we obtain the assistance from the National Guard, and we also fly over a team from the next district. In this respect, for this year, we will fly over a team from the St. Thomas district, roughly maybe between 12 to 15 officers to assist with Juve.
If everybody's on deck with one particular event, how do you handle when other things do happen in the territory?
There's a specific set that is scheduled to work the festival event. And then, of course, our other officers still have to continue to work in their different zones, their different patrols, their different units, investigations or whatever. So we don't, we don't curtail those units or the activities of those units.
Despite these issues, the Crucian Christmas Festival remains a highly anticipated event, albeit with a backdrop of differing opinions on its recent changes. Joining the show from our St. Croix studios, we have Calypso legend Camille King Derby Macedon, Doris Dowling, president of the Regal Dynasty Festival Troupe, and Dania Dowling, secretary for Regal Dynasty Troupe. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being on the show. Let's start with you, King Derby. You've been involved in Carnival for a very long time. How do you feel about the recent changes and the management of the festival under the new Division of Festivals at the Department of Tourism?
It's very, very poor to me, especially as a Calypsonian, to actually, they're giving much already, and they're taking away everything that you're making. For example, as Pat was saying, they bring people from outside, paying them $200,000 to play in a village free. How could you expect to bring a band, bring someone from outside, put them in a village to play free, and giving them, and our local guys them can't get no money. You got myself, you got Generic, all of us is legend. We should be getting them kind of money.
We're going to come back to you and discuss that a little bit more, but I want to move on to Miss Dowling, the owner of Regal Dynasty Festival Troupe. Tell me a little bit about your troupe. And in our piece we just aired, we talked about cultural representation. As a troupe owner, what efforts do you make to represent that culture is represented in what your troupe does every festival?
It's very different for every troupe. For Regal Dynasty, we try to keep it on a level, like, not as much as how Trinidad is now. Yeah, we have some of the styles and stuff, but it's toned down. I can agree that it is getting, out of culture, but we, on the other hand, we bring in new colors, a new flavor, a new style, but certain things, I agree that is not in our culture. I won't bring it home. Not here.
I can respect that. Dania, you are the secretary of Regal Dynasty. Tell me a little bit about why you think there's been this departure from what is culturally ours versus what we see represented in other carnivals around the Caribbean. This need to like almost duplicate. And how do you think we can change or reverse that trend to where we could have costumes that are still classy, done in a classy way, but are more culturally relevant to our history in the Virgin Islands?
The times are changing. The younger folks feel like we should be more up to date and keep up with the times. To me, we could keep it still the times, but at the same time, respect our culture. That's what we're trying to do. We don't want it to be, oh my gosh, you're so revealing. You barely have anything on top of you. Literally, you can't see your whole skin and you just have your piece or private parts covered. What we're trying to do is keep it classy, but at the same time, keep the culture alive.
I can certainly respect that.
More so of having a level of respect for ourselves.
I completely agree with you. King Derby, I want to come back to you. You mentioned the fact that there's this disparity amongst the money that's being spent to bring artists in versus our local artists. But what do you say to individuals that say, well, the larger artists or the artists that they're paying, let me not say larger, and no disrespect intended here, but the artists that we're paying to bring in may somehow attract more individuals to the village. And so therefore, the fees that we pay them are justified in that booth owners make more money. There's more people that come out or come home to St. Croix to see these artists. What would you say to people that make that argument?
Okay, if you're going to bring in any guy and give him $100,000, I should get $100,000 also. Pat, generic. I mean, this is not a private show. This is money that's coming from our treasury. It's not right. You got Stanley is the leading band of the Virgin Islands, but you only will give Stanley a $15,000, and it takes you 6 months to get paid. I mean, that's ridiculous, man. I don't think these guys should settle for that, you know. Come on, what? You're barely giving them money. And at the same time, you're taking months to pay them.
I want to go back to Doris. In our piece that we played, there have been concerns along the parade route with security. Has your troupe ever experienced any issues where individuals are cutting through the troupe or there's just not enough crowd control during a parade?
Actually, yes. Last year, it was definitely the worst year that we had on the road. So Regal Dynasty been in existence for 9 years, and last year was the absolute worst. From long ago, I doing carnival from the time I'm 2 years old. So they will have the barricade along the entire road. But eventually, like I think the last 2 or 3 years, we haven't had any barricades. And if they do have barricades, the barricade is only from the food store right there, the last gas station from KFC and down. Like, that's absolute nonsense. You have people crossing in between performers, possibly even drunk people. Like, I feel like it's dangerous. And I've tried to talk about it, but it's going unheard.
Let me ask you.
But I think that we need to go back to having barricades. At least that helps with VIPD and whoever else they may reach out to for assistance, like the military. Sometimes you see them on the road as well.
Let me ask you, Dania, if you had the opportunity or if you were in charge, for instance, how would you help to better control the crowd? Would it be more barriers? Would it be voluntary recruitment to have people that are along the parade route that could help to keep the crowd in check? Because that could possibly cause a major issue in the future.
If it was me, I definitely would see if we could get some community volunteers and even along the way, get more barricades. To me, it's super, super important with these barricades. Like my sister said, it's horrible. Last year was super, super horrible. And unfortunately, along the way, when we even reached right before the bandstand, some of our members was getting hit. They got it in fights, trying to get people out of the way. It really needs to be dealt with. And I feel like if it was me,
volunteers would be needed, law enforcement would be needed, and barricades throughout the entire parade from top to the bottom to the end.
Just like St. Thomas.
Just like in St. Thomas. St. Thomas has it. I just played mass in St. Thomas, and they had it the whole way through. And I can't lie, I felt more safer in St. Thomas going down the parade road than I felt home. And that's a big problem.
King Derby, let me ask you about booth owners and whether or not with some of the increased fees that we've heard about and some of the complaints that in years past, for instance, that the acts that have been in the village weren't sufficient to bring in the type of revenue necessary to make it worth the endeavor of having a carnival booth. You have any take on that per se? Do you know any booth owners? And if so, how have they reacted to the new leadership under the Division of Festivals?
They ain't saying much, but they are not comfortable with it. But it's a lot of money putting out and nothing coming in. As I was saying before, they are saying that the outside entertainment does draw more people to the village. Well, but okay, that might be a fact. But at the same time, what happened to the local entertainers?
Thank you. For our viewing audience, I just want to let you know that we did reach out to the Division of Festivals to have them on the show. Unfortunately, a representative was unable to make it, and we have an open invitation to any members to come on and discuss these issues. So just to wrap things up, I'm going to start with you, Doris. If you had recommendations or you had the opportunity to speak directly with the Division of Festivals, what recommendations would you make specifically to help to improve the festival experience?
For one, they need to have, at least like how we say down here, having this discussion, they need to have a discussion with us. We have yet to discuss anything to the festival committee pertaining Crucian Christmas Festival for this year. So we could start there, have an honest discussion. It's needed. There's no Crucian Christmas Festival.
Understood.
And I'm just saying, without us, there's no Crucian Christmas Festival.
Dania, same question. If you had the opportunity to have a discussion, what recommendations would you make to improve the festival experience?
It would basically be a piggyback off of what Dari said. Literally listen to us, not just have the discussion and just move on. Literally see what we can do from what is taken from the discussion. Say, okay, this didn't work, well, let's try it this way. I know it takes more than that, but at least for us to be heard and not just one ear out the other.
And finally, you, King Derby, recommendations that you would make to help to improve the experience for Calypsonians and local artists like yourself.
Get rid of tourism.
All right. Well, you've heard
That's
it.
my recommendation.
Thank you all for being on the show and joining us and offering your opinions. Up next, we'll hear from this week's Power Panel with the issues that we're about to discuss. Judge Renee Carty Gumbs recently dismissed 2 defense motions in former Senator Stephen Payne's lawsuit against the 34th Legislature and its president, Donna Fred Gregory, clearing the way for the trial to proceed in March as scheduled. The first motion, filed on November 22nd, questioned the judge's authority due to a gap in her appointment. Although Judge Gumbs Carty's official term ended in November of 2022, she became senior sitting judge of the Superior Court in May of 2023. The defense sought clarification on the legal implications of this interim period and its impact on the judge's authority. They also filed a second motion requesting a 10-day suspension of proceedings following the judge's response. Both motions were firmly rejected by Judge Gumbs Carty, who criticized the defense's strategy as frivolous attempts to disrupt and delay proceedings. She warned that further such motions could lead to a show cause hearing and potential sanctions. The bench trial, set for March 14, 2024, centers on whether the 34th Legislature violated its rules by expelling Payne over sexual harassment allegations. Payne contends lawmakers can discipline but not expel, arguing that his voters were disenfranchised by the expulsion. Telecommunications company Via is shifting its customer service operations from St. Thomas and St. Croix to Guyana, a move that could lead to the layoff of several local workers. This decision has sparked outrage among the United Steelworkers Union, which represents Via employees in the territory. The union claims that Via's decision to move the jobs is a violation of their collective bargaining agreement, which is set to expire in September 2024. In a letter to the union, Via offered a voluntary separation incentive to affected employees. This package includes 10 weeks of severance pay, COBRA benefits for 3 months, and continued discounted Via services for 3 months. Additionally, employees who decline the offer will have the right to bump their members according to the collective bargaining agreement procedures. Daniel Filippo, director of District 9 for the United Steelworkers Union, said the Via workers that are left will be required to learn new skills.
Let's say you're a customer service person. They want you to qualify as a service technician so that if a line goes down or they need you to climb a pole to splice a line, then they could instruct you to do that, which is clear, not only a clear violation of our contract, but frankly just not safe and not the best way to run a business.
Steelworkers staff representative Gerard Jerry Jackson said the union will be exploring all available options to fight Via's decision.
This has been going on now for approximately 3 to 4 years. We have a 5-year agreement with them, and every year they're trying to do some strategies on how to divert those work. We are taking every step positive to basically fight them on this issue. We have spoken to members of the legislature. We have spoken to with the international, basically in filing charges with the National Labor Relations Board. I think since ATN took over, we've been having a lot of issues with them, and we're going to take every course of action that we can take at this process. Right now, within the last 4 years, we had approximately close to 160 members. We're down now to like 98 members. And lately here, what they have done is they sent us a letter basically now offering the employees what they call the VIS, which is a voluntary separation from the company, basically, but diverting those jobs basically to Guyana or any resources that they can. In the past, what we had, they had diverted some of our jobs basically to Ohio, and at one point I think they had also to Colorado. One of the things that we noticed is that every time they have the voluntary separation, they've been still continuing to hire, but they're hiring people in mostly like exempt positions and stuff like that.
St. Thomas water haulers, who played a crucial role in containing fires at the Bavoni landfill in July and September, are still awaiting payment for their services. The first fire, ignited by scrap metal in July, required rapid intervention from water haulers to bring it under control. This was followed by a more extensive blaze in September that burned for weeks before it was finally extinguished. Throughout both incidents, water haulers delivered crucial water supplies, proving to be a vital asset in combating the flames. Bradshaw Water Delivery, one of the companies involved, spoke to WTJX's radio newsfeed expressing concerns about the ongoing delay in payment. The company's manager, Alita Bradshaw, highlighted the financial burden this situation has placed on the company's operations and emphasized the importance of swift compensation for vital services rendered during emergencies.
I submitted all my invoices. I'm just waiting and hoping that before the year finish, I'll get at least even a payment for my July work that I did. I have to make payment to my worker, and I had to make payment to retrieve the water, and I haven't received any payment to balance my accounts. In instances like these where you got emergency, you have to understand when you have to take care of these water haulers, because when something happens again, these are the same people you're going to need, and if you're not respectfully taking care of them in such that you're paying them on a timely matter, there is a problem. They mightn't feel that they're obligated to come another time, but it's our community, so we try to work with the government.
Joining our panel for this episode, we have Alphonse Stalliard, incorporator of the Carnival Committee and 38-year member of the Crucian Christmas Festival, prominent local attorney Key Walker, owner of the Walker Legal Group, and former Senator Neville James, host of our very own The Best Radio Talk Show in the Virgin Islands, Analyze This. Welcome to you all. They're joining us virtually from our studio on St. Croix. I'm going to come to you first, Mr. Stalliard. Hearing the conversation just now amongst our guests about the status of the Crucian Christmas Festival, what's your take, having served so long on the Virgin Islands Carnival Committee and on the Crucian Christmas Festival Committee?
Number one, like the Pastor Derby was saying, they should not have been leaving out the local Calypsonians, paying them little or nothing, and bringing in Calypsonians from the outside, giving them a large amount of money to sing in the villages for free. When people complain about the costumes the people putting on, little or no clothes on, and they exposing themselves and these kind of things, it deteriorates from the wholesome and quality of a carnival.
Mr. Stalliard, I'm going to interrupt you just briefly, and I'm going to jump to Senator James. But Neville, let me ask you something, because I'm sure this issue has come up on your show. There are some individuals that said they like the new quality, they like the diversity of artists, the type of artists that are being brought in. But to the argument that's being made, the economic viability of it, and the festival's ability to generate funds, what do we have to tweak to find this happy medium that we obviously haven't hit yet?
Well, for me personally, as someone who has been in an appropriating body, making monies available for festivals, someone who appreciates the village, everybody has something about Carnival that they look forward to, and I like the village. And the big issue that we're hearing is that they are bringing back artists from outside of the territory way too often, and that is creating a problem. The local Calypsonians and performers believe that they're being, shafted, dismissed, and that's unfortunate. I think we actually need to start earlier in getting all of the entities together. And of course, we have 3 festivals in the Virgin Islands, right? We have the St. Thomas Carnival, which is late April, early May. We have the St. John celebration, which is around Emancipation on 4th of July. And then our festival here on St. Croix is somewhat protracted. We actually had a problem this year, Lesley, where the Division of Festivals had made a decision to truncate how long the village was going to be open for. They acquiesced to the public feedback, and they extended it some days. We need a complete reset. Let's hope that after this year, everybody can come together, sit down, look at all of the festivals, look at how we can master all of the festivals. And our situation is a little bit more unique because it's longer, number one. And then number 2, right? It comes during a time during the Christmas season where a lot of people are spending money to travel to come home. So we need to factor that in as well. But to say we're going to just tweak it, I don't think we need a tweak. I think we need a whole reset, get everybody on the same page, to include the appropriating body, the different agencies that provide support, tourism, public works, what have you, and then go from there. But I think we need a whole new reset. Way too much finger pointing at this point.
Key, I have a question for you. Most people, I think, would argue that the accountability that now comes from the Division of Festivals was a little bit better than the volunteer organizations that were in place at the time. And I think that the decision to move to the division basically came from the fact that the legislature didn't have the accountability in how dollars were spent. What do you think about the move? What do you think about the product that's being produced right now?
Lesley, to the extent that the festival, the carnival, all 3 of them are being at least partially funded or primarily funded through government appropriations, there should be some level of accountability. On one hand, you hear some people say that it has deteriorated the quality of the carnival and the festival, and others think it's improved. And I think ultimately what happens is what happens with anything. You can't please everyone. and people have different viewpoints. What is scantily clad to one person is described as empowering to another. So I think, this is just a very personal issue to a lot of people, and some people are happy and some are not with the direction that that's being taken.
Neville, I'm going to come back to you. Recently, Judge Carty rejected the defense's motion in the Stephen Payne versus the Virgin Islands legislature, and also wrote a very stern warning to the Virgin Islands legislature in terms of, well, at least their attorney representing them, in terms of questioning her ability to come back to the bench to preside over this case. What's your opinion on that? Being a former legislator, a member of the Virgin Islands legislature, what is your opinion on the legislature's ability, to remove one of their members?
Well, first of all, before I talk about that, I want to dovetail on something Ms. Walker said. I believe maybe the legislature is too involved with festivals. I know they're the appropriating body, and there's a likelihood that it's gotten too political. So maybe we need to, back off a little bit. As it relates to the Stephen Payne issue, I spoke about this in my first appearance here, Comes with the Territory, and I am dumbfounded. I mean, very, very honest, very frank here with the audience, Ms. Comissiong. The notion that the legislature supposedly does not have the ability to remove one of their own members is a flawed notion. We have precedent going as far back as 1989 with then Senator Kenneth Mapp, who was removed from, I believe that was 89-90. That would be the 18th or 19th legislature, thereabouts. And the legislature removed him because he had registered to vote in another jurisdiction. That's number one. Number two, the Alicia Hansen matter when the Supreme Court in 2014 deemed that she was not eligible to seek office or to be on a ballot for the 31st legislature. A clear Supreme Court footnote there again, that if in fact she was guilty of a crime involving moral turpitude and could not run or seek office in the 31st, the Supreme Court made it clear. That means that she should not have served in the 29th and the 30th. And then in the 32nd legislature, the matter of Kevin Rodriguez, when he had a legal issue with respect to filing bankruptcy in Tennessee, and the legislature had the ability to admit him or deny his admittal. And we handled that, I believe, in June of 2017, right? So the reality is the court, in my estimation, has made a mistake. That's my take. Don't mean that just because I say it is fact. And I believe there's argument based on precedent that Judge Carty made a mistake. And I believe, hopefully, that we can get this behind us.
You sounded like Attorney Neville James, but we're going to go to the attorney on the panel, Key Walker. Key, there's two arguments that are being made here. One, the legislature's authority to remove a member, and having served as counsel at the Virgin Islands legislature, you are uniquely positioned to answer this. And then there's also an issue of the judge's ability to come back after her term has expired to rule over this case. Have you taken a look at both legal issues, and from your expert opinion, what do you think on both?
I have. I've looked at it, and I'll say this, and thank you, Senator James, for raising the Kevin Rodriguez case, because I represented the legislature in the Kevin Rodriguez case, and the legislature was successful. The issue here is that there might be a question about the judge's authority to have issued some of the orders during that time period. I think what happened here is, in reading the papers that were filed by the legislature's counsel, if you're going to question as a branch of government the authority of another branch of government, you've got to come correct. You've got to cite some cases. You've got to be thorough in your analysis. And I don't think there was an analysis that really supported and buttressed the point that that attorney was trying to make. On top of that, to the extent that her authority to issue the orders has been raised, I think that's a legitimate concern. And I think what would be appropriate is to either explain what the authority was. Maybe there was some lapse in the timing as to when she was made senior sitting status, but that could also be corrected because those orders can be vacated and reissued since she's been appointed a senior sitting status. So I think that there might be a valid issue. I think completely dismissing it and threatening sanctions may not be the appropriate way to handle it, but to actually look at the issue so that the people of the Virgin Islands can rest assured that whatever decision was made with the proper authority. So I think there's a legitimate issue that just really needs to be addressed in the appropriate way.
Mr. Stalliard, in local news, VIA has decided that they are going to be moving their customer service division or some of the jobs rather, regarding customer service to Guyana. And I got to tell you, that's a major blow, especially for those unionized workers. They're being offered severance pay. They're being offered 3 months of discounted service and, of course, COBRA coverage. But what do you think about a move like that for such a large company, a large employer in the territory?
Let me say this to you, Lesley. I think it's a terrible move because I'm going to tell you the truth. One of the most hurtful moves in this government was when AT&T sold their company to Liberty. From what I am understanding, Liberty is now also in South America or Guyana, one of them countries. Am I correct?
Correct.
And I don't see nothing getting better by VIA selling their company moving to Guyana. And I feel that the people of the Virgin Islands need to stand up and voice their opinions, and the government needs to look into this. But you see, what I think is happening is they find that Guyana has become a better tax shelter than the Virgin Islands for their businesses.
Well,
and that's my opinion.
I just want to make a quick correction. It's not the entire company, it's just the customer service division. But coming to you, Neville, we heard from the union leader, Jerry Jackson, and the actions that they are planning to take to protect their workers. But it seems to me, and this is not just here in the territory, because we saw several strikes throughout the country this year with various unions. Unions seem to be losing their grip on power and their ability to help their members. And corporate moves like this, it seems like the employees and the unions are kind of finding themselves on the short end of the stick. Now, we don't know all the logistics behind this move or the reasons behind this move, but what recourse do you think the local union actually has to help save their employees other than simply retraining them?
Well, you know, this was painful when I heard that the potential for this is going to happen. You know, Lesley, as a host, I've analyzed this, and you know, having served in the legislature, they used to call me the numbers cruncher, right? And one of the reasons why they call me that is because I'm big on disposable income here in the Virgin Islands. And the notion that we are going to lose jobs, right, undermines our tax base, right? And the public, a lot of the public is not aware of how, you know, government functions. We need a solid private sector with folks working and paying taxes, right? And we collecting income taxes, and because of this disposable income, you know, they have the ability to purchase homes, which means mortgages, which means our banks are doing well. They spend money as consumers, and this is very, very unfortunate. From a union standpoint, though, you touched on it, you know, and I believe, Lesley, the real issue is in this world of ever advancing technological growth, right? That is what is undermining unions big time, right? The ability for folks to work remote, you know what I'm saying? The people to communicate from their via cell phones and devices is really undermining the union's strength, because unions are really about people in the workplace, right? And man and woman power. And because of technology, you know, unions gonna have to look at how they're going about dealing with matters. Now, I do want to say, UAW, right, just overcame a big work stoppage. They went on strike in Michigan, right, with the big three, and that worked out well for them. Why? Because people still got to put cars together. You know what I'm saying? But in a service industry like cell phones and TV and landlines, I could call VIA now, right? I have a problem. If a channel ain't working, right? If I don't have volume on a channel, I could call VIA now, and they could tell me what to do on my remote and fix the problem. And that's what's really going on there. So they need to look at that. But I'm solutions-based at this age. Before I was finger-pointed, now I want to get into, you know, seeing how we could make things work and make sure that unions remain viable, because unions are important.
Key to Neville's point about technology, changing the workplace. And we know that the advent of AI, for instance, so many large companies are using AI for customer service positions, which are the positions that we're being reported to that are moving to Guyana. How do you think local businesses can brace for the wave of change that is already upon us and make themselves more competitive to avoid moves like this?
With local businesses and local employees, you're going to have to anticipate this. It's unfortunate, but as technology advances, so do opportunities for employers to make decisions that they feel are better business decisions for their companies. I sympathize with anyone losing their job and a group of people losing their job, but I think in anticipation of what's happening with the AI technology, people need to start looking at career changes, other opportunities, and not get caught off guard when this type of announcement is made. Because, we've had call centers in India forever. I don't know when I've last called American Airlines and spoken to anyone American. It's really a fact of life, and I think everyone at this point has a personal responsibility to start making adjustments to accommodate those changes.
Now, I want to chime in real quickly. That's the reason why we have an EDC program. That's the reason why we have an EDC program, and we have the RT part. We give out exemptions to these companies that allow for us to remain competitive, because the cost of labor in a lot of these foreign countries pale in comparison to what is paid to workers under the U.S. flag. And that's what pains me more than anything else. They make these moves, and Alphonse, in many instances, is correct. Folks are looking for tax breaks. They're looking at the bottom line. But we have an attractive EDC program, right, that allows for companies to be more than competitive by staying here. And we also have something to our advantage as well. We're American jurisdiction, and they got protections here that they may not have down the road. A lot of them, they like to run. A lot of them, they come back because they know they're safer here than they are in these foreign countries.
Absolutely. And we did reach out to VIA to ask for their side of the story. However, at the time of this recording, we had not heard back from representatives of the company. One of the issues that we reported on earlier, Mr. Stallard, was about the fact that water haulers that played such a crucial role in helping to out both the most recent Bavoni fire just a few weeks ago and back in July, they haven't been paid. And this is a reoccurring story that we hear with vendors that provide emergency and critical services to our territory, having to go out on the limb, having to stretch themselves, and sometimes being placed in very compromising situations and putting their businesses at risk with having to help the Virgin Islands government with an emergency situation. What's your take on that, and how do you think we can improve the way we deal with individuals that provide us with critical emergency services that are in the private sector?
My take on that would be, since it was an emergency situation relative to that fire, it needs for the fire department to take legislation to appropriate more funds. And they might need to go back to the legislature with a copy of the amount they're going to need to pay these vendors and try to pay them in an expeditious time, because we don't know when it may reoccur again. And without their help, we will be in severe trouble, because it would traumatize the health of the people in the Bavoni area. So I think the department that's responsible for paying them should, if they don't have the adequate funds to pay them, they should seek legislation to appropriate the funds and see that they are paid within a timely basis. And they should have been done prior to now.
Well, the water hauler from Bradshaw Water Services, Alita Bradshaw, that interviewed with our news service, said that indeed funds had been appropriated and that the Virgin Islands Fire Services was going to take the money out of their budget to make sure that the water haulers were paid. But I'm going to come to you, Neville. Having been in the legislature, this is a reoccurring theme, whether it's waste haulers, the water haulers. This is a perennial issue. What solutions, since you're now solutions-based, that we can employ as a government to make sure that we don't put these small business owners in such a compromising position?
As someone who has, like you said, not only worked in the legislative branch as a senator, but I was also the director of procurement for the Department of Education, so I'm aware of the requisitioning process. And one thing I learned, right, and I want to let the public know, right? There's special funds that are set aside, right, to address exigency. And clearly, this was an exigency matter. And when you have a situation of like this nature, once you identify how critical this issue is, the administrator in that particular agency should be looking at ways to identify funds so that we could pay vendors, because Mr. Saleh is absolutely correct. He's worked in government for a lot of years, so it's key. And we know about this, right? This is about execution, and this is about experience, knowing how to get things done. You communicate with the legislature. We have a matter of exigency. Can we make payments from local funds? Can we make payments from federal funds? Because once it was declared an emergency, maybe we could get paid from federal funds, right? Or maybe we need special funds, right? There's ways to deal with this. Now, I'm glad I'm sitting here next to Attorney Walker, because she should have some more insight, right? Being part of the inner sanctums of the administration. So I want to yield to her, right? Because we're not in the finger pointing business, but I do want to ask of all agencies, right? Make sure that your business administrator is prepared to deal with a matter of exigency whenever it presents itself, by communicating also not only with legislature, but with the chairman of the finance committee in particular.
Well, I wanted to go to Attorney Walker because in addition to having that experience that you speak about, she's also the owner of a legal group and a business owner, a small business owner. So she's been in positions where I'm sure there's been exigent circumstances where you've had to come up with money for payment. And we all know if somebody's providing a service to us in an exigent situation, the quicker we pay them, the faster and better service we will get with them in the future. So what's your take on the situation, Attorney Walker?
Well, despite that nice handoff from former Senator James, I don't have any firsthand knowledge as to why there's a delay in the payment to the water haulers. But I will say this, I deal with a lot of other small businesses who are owed vendor payments. And what I hear from them is almost that they're used to this. And it's sad, but what they are asking for is, listen, when you don't pay me, you still expect me to go and pay my gross receipts. You still will charge me a late penalty if I decide to pay my employees instead of paying my taxes. So I think to the extent that there are vendors who are owed large sums of money, and we're talking small businesses that are owed like $1 million, you know, a few $100,000, which is major depending on the size of your business, there needs to be some sort of give and take. And I think anyone doing business in the private community with the government has this expectation, as sad and as unreasonable as it is. They expect this, but I think there needs to be some sort of relief that's brought to them. And I do agree with former Senator James. When you're dealing with an emergency situation that a business did not plan for, special accommodations should be made to get those payments to those individuals. And it's the holidays. And it really saddens me to hear about these types of issues when we're coming up on the Christmas holiday season.
Well, speaking of the holidays, President Biden's visit to St. Croix has almost become like an expectation. And the roads in Christiansted have been a major issue. We had businesses on the show on Comes With the Territory discussing the fact that it has affected their customers' ability to get to them. And the community has been in an uproar. There was a meeting held at Government House that took an unfortunate turn in terms of getting real solutions. But with the media and all the other ancillary support services that accompanies the president to St. Croix, is St. Croix really prepared to host President Biden if him and his family decides to come this Christmas season? Let's hear what Richard Mota of Government House had to say.
There is a dispute between Waste Management Authority and one of the contractors, and we've been working with the contractor and Waste Management to kind of smooth over that dispute and help mediate that. And we're hopeful that we are going to make progress on getting those roads fixed in very short order. The governor has already signed the contract for the vendor to pave the roads, and so it's just up to the current contractor, to finish making those last minute things that need to be done before that new vendor can start on the road paving in the town of Christiansted.
Now, while there has not been official confirmation that the president is visiting the territory, I almost love how Crucians expected. And the talk has been in the air. And Neville, on your show, like you say, oh God, man, I've been in Christianstead. I seen the condition of the roads. How do we rectify this situation? Because to me, this is a make it or break it. We have to make these roads better. What do you think are potential solutions that could be employed to improve the situation?
Well, Lesley, you mentioned my show, and this is a big topic on my show. Highly charged political topic now on my show. However, the good thing about our show, Analyze This, is a lot of my listeners, a lot of our listeners, I should say our, because it's a WTJX thing, not a Neville James thing, they offer solutions. Terry T, who I believe has been a panelist on this particular show, brought up an excellent idea recently, where he said he was in Delaware, and they do a lot of work. One thing about the mainland, they invest and reinvest in their infrastructure. And a suggestion that he made to them made so much sense. Those heavy steel plates that certain cities use when they're dealing with roads, maybe we need to employ or deploy, whichever word is appropriate in this situation, on the roads. If in fact the president ain't gonna come here, because I'm sorry, that is not going to be a good perspective for anyone, because it's not just the president who looking to come here. When the president comes, they travel with a media pool. And the last thing any jurisdiction wants is for the media to have a field day looking at infrastructure that's struggling. And the president stays in a certain part of the island. I ain't gonna disclose that, you know what I'm saying? But I know that he spends time in the downtown Christianstead area, and we gotta be careful with that. I also want to say this though. This applies to every downtown area throughout the Virgin Islands, whether it be Cruz Bay, Charlotte Mali, Red Hook to a lesser extent, Frederickstead. Planning is very, very important. And execution. I can be honest with you, sometimes I don't even know if the contractors are doing a good job. I don't like to point fingers at them, but some of the work that we're seeing being done, that's not how it used to be back in the day.
Pete, let me ask you a quick question. Do you think with the roads and the conditions that they are right now, would you think the president would question what exactly is happening with all the federal dollars we're sending to this territory when the infrastructure is in this condition, if he sees, Christianstead in the state that it is now?
I think his family members that walk through town and go into our restaurants would have huge questions. It's unacceptable. I mean, I can explain away a lot of things, but the roads in Christianstead are just something you cannot explain away. It should have never come to this, and it should not have been allowed to last as long as it has. I think that that's going to be a huge embarrassment to us, a huge issue for anyone, much less the president, to come and see the roads in the condition they are. I'm embarrassed, and I don't like coming into town anymore because of how horrible the roads are, and I really hope that it gets fixed very soon.
Alphonse, I know you're a St. Thomian, but really and truly you're a Virgin Islander. I don't know if you've had a chance to visit Christianstead since you've been over on the Big Island, but what's your take on this situation? And specifically, what could we do to improve the situation so that we don't have Crucians in this position again?
Christianstead roads are bad, Frederickstead roads are bad, St. Thomas roads are bad. And I travel on all of them, all through the year. And they need to fix the roads in St. Croix. Some of the roads you find that got so much bumps that is despicable for people to say that they drive in their cars on these roads. I don't know if there's an asphalt problem or it's just a matter of somebody is not paying attention to detail. From last year, they've been trying to fix the highway going into Frederickstead. And up to now, as of today, it ain't fixed. No, we need to have a thing called priority and execution.
Well, I was very excited about this panel. Thank you all for joining us. That's all the show we have for you this week. Join us next Sunday at 1 p.m. for another episode of Comes with the Territory, and the show repeats at 7 p.m. For your weekday updates, make sure at 5 p.m. you tune into 93.1 for our 5 o'clock news program with Marcelina Ventura. Thank you all for joining us. Have a great Sunday for all of us at WTJX. Thanks for tuning in.